Alrighty, well, welcome everyone. Some of you are probably saying, "Well, I'm a pre-vet student," and so yes, we started as a pre-med organization, but we've done some offshoots in veterinary medicine, pharmacy, dentistry, and other areas. And veterinary medicine is a very important need for our state, but also uh, for people that are seeking to be veterinarians. And so we're lucky to have UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine, which is constantly ranked number one in the country, and it's one of the largest animal hospitals as well. And so we're honored to have Dr. Jandri, who's the Associate Dean of Admission and also of Student Programs, and he's a professor of clinical small animal emergency and critical care at UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine. He is an alumni for both his undergrad and veterinary degree from the Ohio State University Buckeyes. After graduation, he did an internship in small private practice in Los Angeles, and he subsequently um, did a residency in Northern California and became a director of emergency services in Pennsylvania. He began his academic journey at the University of Pennsylvania and transitioned to UC Davis um, in 1999. He is board certified uh, from the American College of Veterinary Medicine and specializes in emergency and critical care. Um, and he frequently collaborates with many veterinary and human medicine across UC Davis, and he's also part of various committees for advancing justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and also the mental and well-being of veterinarians in the community as well. So we're honored to have him join us again.
Thanks for having me again. And it's really humbling when you introduce me like that. I'm thinking to myself, wow, I actually do a lot of stuff. Um, some people might say, how can you focus and how can you actually do all of them really well? But oddly enough, they're all intertwined. As a faculty member, as an administrator, as an animal caregiver, as a student support advocate, as a researcher, all of those are intertwined. And I wonder if it's unusual for everyone online today to understand that the dimensions of being a professional are complicated and they're not very siloed into one specific area, and you can truly be a professional in any of the health professions and still own the fact that you can be an advocate for justice and equity and diversity, that you can be a caregiver, whether it's for humans or for animals or for each other. And you can be a leader, you can be an administrator and a leader and help advance agendas, whether they be research, whether they be policy, whether they be individual animal, herd animal, community based. It's actually kind of a privilege and an exciting time to actually think about expanding everyone's definition of what a veterinarian is, because I think that all the preparation that starts with the thoughts that everyone's having maybe in high school, community college, or as they're nearing graduation from a four-year granting institution, I think there's a lot that's preparations that are happening right now that you don't realize you're going to use later on in life. And maybe that's a lot of what we might talk about today. So I guess I know that last week you had some of my team members on as well. Anila Ahmed is assistant director of our admissions office. She spent time with two of our scholars, both Chantel Johnson and Riley Garrett. They were pivotal to give you a student-based perspective. And if the folks online have not seen that yet, I would definitely recommend that you watch that as well, because that's going to be a supplement to what we're talking about today. And the things that were offered as helpful hints on the path to application of vet school are real, for sure. if I say them, it's just going to be a repeat of what they said because we all are of the same mind and we all know exactly what it takes to get into veterinary medicine. But I think maybe for a lot of what we're hoping to do today is certainly a lot of question and answer period, because I think that there's no one size fits all. I think there's going to be a lot of nuances where an individual person's path is what they want to do. And the question becomes, well, how do you take what you want to do and spin it and pivot it to exactly what is needed for application to vet school? Or how do I use that in my progress to my professional career? And I want to use that to enhance myself as a professional. So, Jimin, I'm not sure if you wanted to do a question and answer period, or if you want me to just keep going on a specific topic, or if you have some.
Yeah, I think the first question would be this is something that keeps coming up all the time and also came up last week as well. When you're looking for people for admission, do you prefer to see students who have taken their prereqs at a community college versus a four-year university? And would it harm them if they do it at?
Yeah, from our perspective at UC Davis, we are very what I would call agnostic to the location that you did your educational training. I would argue for community college starting points because it's beneficial for many different reasons. One, it's going to be certainly a much lower expense than a four-year granting institution. I think that the cost of the education is less. The cost of living is also potentially going to be a little bit less because there's a high likelihood you might be staying close to home or at home as you take these earlier curricular classes that are the basic foundational type classes, and the ones that are going to be springboarding you and launching you into the next higher level type classes that are required for our prerequisites and also for your degrees. I would have to also argue that there are probably a lot less students per number of faculty in the classes that you're going to take in community college. And I expect that that more personalized opinion is going to be a really um, or not personalized opinion, but a personalized approach where you are able to ask more questions to your educators because you have a closer relationship. There's fewer of you in class. I think that's very important because if you come to a larger institution, like I went to Ohio State, my Bio 101 class, like introductory biology class, I think had 700 students in the auditorium. And that's no way you're going to feel like you have a relationship with the professor. But if you're one of 20 or one of 30, your professor knows your name. They want to see you every day. They're interested in your success and they're going to actually do a lot, probably more to help you. So I think for a small class size, I think community colleges are also a big win. Um, Getting the 2 years started at community college and transferring into an institution, at least in California, transferring from the community college system into the Cal State or the UC system is much easier as a third year entrant as opposed to coming straight out of high school because of the policies and programs that are in place. Because a lot of people aren't ready or at that academic level or have shown the academic skill yet in high school to achieve admission into a UC or a CSU. But when you have done the 2 years and have proven that you actually have the focus and the skill and the drive to excel at your academics, the transition into the third year at a four-year granting institution, it should be a lot easier. So that's actually another win for community college. Um, and there's a lot of community colleges that have a good focus on things that you're interested in, whether they be general STEM kind of courses, biology, math, science, the things that you need as a health profession. But they also probably have a nice set of grounding humanities as well, so that you can take interest in and explore things like sociology, psychology, women and gender studies, religion, all these other humanities that are extremely important. And we're going to talk about my thoughts on the importance of humanities in a STEM education a little bit later. But I think that this would be a good time to explore some of those other foundational things that you need as a professional, and as a human, as a member of your community, while later on in your education, you're probably going to get a little more focused in your major area, and you don't have as much time in your schedule to take those courses in which you might have interest. So I'm pro community college on the way to a 4-year degree institution that you'll get your degree at. UC Davis requires a bachelor's degree before applying to any health professional school. So that has to be completed by the time you sit in a seat in our school. And I think that's not a big problem, because with good focus and some good guidance counselors and advisors, you can probably get there pretty easily in 4 years. However, if you know you have to work quite a lot during your community college time, and you're what is expected to be 2 years in community college and then 2 years, say at UC Davis in undergrad, maybe you're going to take a slower amount of time because you can't take as many courses because you're going to be working and still earning some money to live. That's completely fine too. It's a lot easier in community college to take a little bit longer because you're doing all sorts of things about life and work and studying. Community college is also going to be really helpful for that. Very they're very used to that. They have a lot of students in that space where they're actually supporting all of those things to make sure that the person is whole while they're also studying and maximizing their experience. When you're submitting your application to UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine, part of the question you asked was, do we look on that with favor or not favor, or how do we look at it? And we actually just say, great, you did the courses, you did well, we check them off. We don't care if they came from Foothill College or American River College or from Stanford or from UC Davis. We just are glad that you did them. And the most important thing is do well at them. All of the courses that you take demand focus, demand attention, and demand all of your abilities to maximize and get the best grades you can. The best grades you can show us as an applicant to School of Veterinary Medicine is that you have the ability to obtain information, hold it in your brain, and actually take in a lot in a relatively short amount of time. That skill is what you need as an academic when you're applying to veterinary school, because it gets even harder. And it's like training for a marathon. You can't just walk out the door of this building and run a marathon without having training. You have to train yourself to actually be able to do that kind of intensity and distance. So all your prerequisite work proves to us in the vet school that you have the ability to do the distance, to do the intensity, because you have just developed your study skills, you have developed your process, you have developed your interest area, you have organized the rest of your life and all the other parts of it that are really important, such that you can maintain excellent grades and still have the curiosity to keep going. So that stamina is really pretty important. And the way we know that people have academic stamina is focusing in on all their grades, whether they're at a community college or another institution. So we don't care if it's a community college, then another school. We don't care if you start at Chico State, Fresno State, UCSD, UC Santa Cruz. To us, schools are schools, and we don't really have what I can say is we don't have a bias for or against schools. I think all schools are going to give you a great institutional education. They're going to have support networks and things that are going to be interesting and unique for you to pick and choose the institution you want to go to. But I really don't think that you need to say, oh, I need to go to UC Davis undergrad because I want to go to UC Davis vet school. That's going to look better for the applications. That's going to look better to the committee. It's not. What's going to look best and better for us is that you do well no matter where you study. And if you start at community college, good on you. If you finish at UC Davis, good on you. If you do a master's program to follow at another institution, good on you. All we ask is you do all the prerequisites that our faculty need you to have before you enter. I know that you're going to do best in the application process if you have the best grades possible through any of your coursework. And be ready for a heavy, intense, and then powerful type of education when you get into a professional school. Veterinary medicine is definitely hard. And it's not hard because we're making it hard. It's hard because that's the reality of knowing every species and all the things. It's really challenging. So the people that do that best are the ones who have built their stamina, their endurance, and their curiosity hasn't ever waned. So they're still completely interested in learning and learning a lot more and a lot more and quickly. So um, I think that's my long answer to a pretty short question about the importance of community colleges.
Yeah, and the other thing is I put this in the chat is UC Davis has done a really good job. Vet school has done a really good job putting all the databases of classes at community colleges, CSUs, UCs, and even some out-of-state schools like, so definitely check that out because, that's being what is it, master of your own destiny is, that information is readily available to you. And if they didn't accept those, they wouldn't take the time to put, something like over 400 schools listed on there. So please check that out. Also, some of you are asking, like, would like a 3.5 GPA be competitive versus a 3.9 GPA? And like the statistics are on there, and I know that they're on the higher end, but that's a range. It's not it- it- you know, everybody's looking for that number, and I know that some some transfer programs, I think you need to have a minimum 3.3 to get into that program. And can you just talk a little bit about the GPA and how that's looked on for selectivity?
You
Uh,
bet. Yeah, we have, let me just back up a little bit. We used to have a program where we took the GPA, many different ways to look at your GPA, but look, all the grades are entered, all the transcripts are checked and all that. And we took the graduate records exam, and we had the electronic letters of record, which are your references submitting their review of you as a person, a letter, as well as a bunch of check boxes, a bunch of different parameters of you as a person and as a professional, future professional. 2 years ago, we entered a class where we got rid of the graduate records exam and replaced it with a distance traveled score. The distance traveled score is something we look to find folks who are still scoring well on their GPA, but also overcoming adversity. And those who have overcome more adversity in their lives and their educational experiences are given a little bonus to say, hey, good on you for doing all that extra work to overcome that and still having the great GPAs. So we have entered 2 classes now with that process where the GRE is no longer needed, and we've added the distance travel score on top of the electronic letters of record scores and the GPA scores. So our GPAs are always posted on our website. What is the average getting in GPA for an in-state student versus out-of-state student? But don't forget, it's more of than just the GPA. When we went from GRE, we were getting about 1,000 to 1,200 applicants. When we removed the GRE, we now get about 2,000 to 22 or 2,400 applicants. So the way we do our first class of our applicants is look at those scores. It's a complicated equation that we look at different parts of your GPA, your electronic letters of record scores, and your distance traveled score. Electronic letters of record score, those are your references. So you have a way to control your references and make sure you're getting the best people to advocate for you in the best way. We'll talk more on what my goals are about letters of record recommendation. So we'll have a little bit of a tangent on that. Distance travel score, you have no control over that. That's stuff that's already completed, water under the bridge, it's done. It's stuff that you've already overcome prior to your application. So there's no way you can adjust that. But in your hands is the GPA, and that's why we're spending a lot of time on it. Is the GPA is 100% you. You have to do all the work. You have to earn those scores. So the GPA is high in general. I mean, people that are coming to veterinary school are competitive academically and they're curious academically and they're driven academically. So they're typically in the 3.7 to 3.8 range. But that doesn't mean that everyone has a 4.0. It means that some people have a 3.2 or a 3.3, but they have enhancements in their other areas where we're scoring them, meaning their distance travel score and their electronic letters of record. So that mixes them up into the pot because we don't just rank everybody on GPA and enter them that way. If that was the case, then everyone would need a 3.9 or above. Because out of the 2,200 applicants, we only interview 240 and we accept 155. So the mix of all of these parameters that go into the ranking of the individual is pretty important. It's not just one single part, it's all three of those parts. And then once you're selected as sort of a finalist, if you will, for an interview, then our admissions committee will read every letter of every detail in your application packet to ensure that there's consistency across all the things that you say and that your reference letters say, making sure that you are still the right person to be in this interview pool. If there's big holes, if there's big question marks, if one of your letter writers says, well, this person has some real significant communication issues, and here's an example, we might say, ooh, that's a problem. We need to look at that a little bit more clearly. And if we dig into that and it's pretty bad for what we think a professional needs to do or have, that person might be kicked out of that interview pool and replaced by the next person in line according to our scores. So I think that's why we harp so much on GPA here at UC Davis, because it is a major driver of this overall score. And like I said before, it's a predictor of your ability to do the curriculum as we have you here as a scholar.
This is another question somebody wanted to know. Do withdrawal classes matter in the application if you had to like withdraw from a class?
Nope. Withdrawal classes doesn't matter because they don't show up because you never finished it. You didn't receive credit. So withdrawals are okay. We understand that life happens. And if you do a course, you don't withdraw, you stick with it and you get a D, which is not an acceptable grade for any of the prerequisites because they have to be C or higher. That means C, C plus, any Bs, any As. C minus doesn't count as well on a prerequisite. And if you say, oh, I really don't want that D on my record, well, it's already there. The only way you can show us that you have made amends and have learned the material and have you maintain your curiosity is take the class over again, either there or at another location, and this time get an A. The D still shows, the A still shows, and we have to regulate whether we take the highest, whether we take a blend of the two, and that's something we have to deal with on our end. But we always want you to do your best. And like I said, if it's a C or higher, we'll accept it for a prerequisite course. For all other courses, doesn't matter, but a lot of people don't like to have grades that are a C minus or below seen on their transcript. So they often are encouraged internally. They want to take it over to prove to themselves that they can do better than that.
The thing though, you guys, this is something that every time I hear somebody say this, I want to hit my head. Do not stay in a class to get an F in order to repeat it because that will kill your GPA. Getting a W on your transcript is just a W and does not impact your GPA at all. And I think most schools you could drop like a week before. Now, let's say you have a medical issue or something like that, you could get an excused withdrawal. You just have to submit the paperwork. But I've actually heard this from a couple people. I had somebody in my OChem said, "Oh, I'm just gonna like stay in the class and finish it, but get in like a D, and then I'm gonna take it again." And I'm like, no, don't do that. Withdraw because that's going to impact your GPA. And like a 5 unit, and most of these STEM classes are 5 units, semester units, or 6 units quarter. That's like a huge hit on your GPA. So like don't do that. And and what Dr. Jandri says that yes, things happen in life. You may have to work, or you may have to take care of your siblings, or like life happens, I mean, so things happened. Things happen. So please, like, don't. This is like the one that, like, every time I hear somebody say this, I want to like hit my head like a couple times. Don't
I
do
mean,
that.
yeah, that's a really good point. Don't try not to get the F. Try to withdraw if you can. Sometimes you've already passed the withdraw date, and that might be unavoidable anymore. But if you can avoid it, it's best to get out and focus as much as you can to do the best you can. And there's a question in the chat about if you failed the class 3 times but retake it and get an A, would it replace all those other attempts? Honestly, it probably won't replace 3 Fs to have an A, but it'll probably average things. And that's one of the things that we look through when we're doing our holistic review of the people we're going to interview. We're trying to look for these things that are stumbling blocks, and to see if those stumbling blocks are sort of a one-off, or is it a consistent pattern. So I would hope that if you take a course and do poorly, you actually focus and maximize it the next time you take it. Don't just take it the next time and take it the next time and take it the next time if you haven't resolved the issues like work or caring for an elder family member or all these other things, because you're not going to actually do better if the same kind of stumbling blocks were present when you did poorly on that course. So I agree with Zubin, is focus on the time you can do in the course. If you're not going to be able to do well, withdraw before the withdraw date, so that it's no harm, no foul. You'll be starting over with a clean slate. It's easier to do a clean slate and get a new grade than have an F averaged with an A. It's nice you got an A. That's great. But what was going on at the time you got an F? We kind of need to know about that. And there's something that's called the explanatory statement in the Vet Med Central Application Service, MCAS. There's an explanatory statement where it gives you a place to explain why there are some of these problems. And when you say, well, I had this F and I got this F in OChem 3 times because all these other things were going on, I finally fixed all those things. And when they were fixed and that stuff wasn't going on in my life, I actually took it again and I got to say, well, that's good. That helps us understand why this was happening. And it gives us ideas on why you're going to be a great scholar from this point forward, because you resolved all those other issues. But if you don't tell us about that in the explanatory statement, we won't know. And it's very important to own it, tell us about it, and tell us how you fixed it. That's really what the explanatory statement is for, because everyone has a little bit of a hiccup in their long educational path to get to veterinary school, for sure. So use the explanatory statement to your advantage. That tells the admissions committee why. And if we don't understand the why, we're going to make something up. And you don't want that to happen. So be clear, show us, tell us, and then we'll be fully informed.
Part of growing up and being an adult, or they call it an examined life, is like finding out what your challenges were and fixing it, because no one's perfect. Like everybody fails at something. I'm sure Dr. Gentry has failed at something throughout his career, academic, but everybody does that. And I think it's, finding out why you've done that problem. So we're getting a couple of questions about research and how important is it, and is it an equal to other experiences, and do you have to have research experience?
On the Vet Med Central Application Service, VMCAS is what we call it, the MCAS, VMCAS. There are animal experiences, there are veterinary experiences, and there's research experiences. It gives you these buckets into which you put in these pieces of information. So animal experience would be things like maybe 4-H or FFA. You had done this earlier in your life. These are where you're working with animals, and it is a non-veterinary mentored experience, but it's an animal experience. Put that in there. If it's a veterinary mentored experience, like working in a clinic, riding alongside on a truck to the farm, if there was, you were volunteering at a wildlife rehab center and worked alongside the veterinarian every day and they were mentoring you and guiding you, that's veterinary experience. And you put that in there and tally up the hours. Research experience is anytime you're in a research environment, whether it's a veterinary mentor guidance or another academic educator type guidance. It doesn't have to be a veterinarian. It can be a PhD. It could be a lab tech. It could be a postdoctoral scholar, a TA. So research experience is where you would put that information when it revolves around research, whether it's in the field or in the laboratory. It could be related to government. It could be related to academics, however you get that research experience. Honestly, we have minimum hours for veterinary experience because we want to know that you have provided time or learning from and next to a veterinarian and working through her day with her. So you know that you will own a little bit of what it means to be a veterinarian. That's why we require veterinary experience hours. Ours is 180 minimum. The average person has far more than that, but that doesn't mean you're any better if you have 181 versus 2000. Just get 180. We think that's enough for you to understand what it's like to be in a veterinarian's shoes. Research really is not important as far as our evaluation process for the DVM applications at all. I would say if you're interested in research, you want to dabble in research, get a little experience in it, and you want to show us you did it, that's great. That's important. We love to see that. But does it add value to all the other things? No, because it's not really part of our initial process. Will it benefit you for establishing tighter connections with your faculty members who might be writing your letters? Sure. But if that research experience is not being paid and you're not taking the extra hours that you need to make some money to pay for the rest of your education, don't strive to do research hours if it's going to pull away from something else that's really essential. The only time that research hours are really, really essential is when you apply to our dual degree program, which we call VSTP, Veterinary Scientist Training Program, VSTP here at UC Davis. That's where you apply to veterinary school and graduate school at the same time, and you're enrolling in the DVM program and a PhD program at the same time. So the people who are applying to the research side of that are going to have a focus on research. They're going to have had lots of research experience. They're going to be extremely competitive for graduate school. They're probably very competitive for veterinary school, but they need to be competitive for both at the same time. So that research experience and their research productivity is going to be very important when they apply to the dual degree program, because when you apply to UC Davis dual degree program, you can get into the UC Davis VSTP program right at the beginning. And it's very lucrative because our school pays for your tuition and pays a living stipend for the time you're in the program, which typically is 2 years in the DVM program, 3 to 5 years in the PhD program, and then you come back for the final 2 years of your DVM program. So you graduate with both your PhD and your DVM. And over that relative 8-year time frame, UC Davis is paying for your tuition and fees and providing you a bit of a stipend. It's very lucrative because you don't pay very much at all. We're paying for you. It's a very, very competitive program, obviously, to achieve this. You're going to be working super hard, of course, because you're going to be doing your DVM, then you're going to be doing your PhD, then you're going to finish your DVM program. You're here for a long time, and you're probably going to be a future veterinary educator or leader somewhere. These folks are going to be highly focused on research, whether it's translational research from the clinic to the bedside, whether it's basic science, foundational research. It might be research in the field that are related to things that we need to know about animal-human interactions and the environment. So it's research that's directed at the area of interest. The area of interest typically comes from your earlier years in your curriculum, and research experience is essential for VSTP applicants. But if you're just a straight DVM scholar for a DVM degree, no special extra, your 4-year DVM degree, research is not needed. If you have it, put it in there. If you're going to be a VSTP, you have to have a lot. And for most everyone who's applying, don't need it.
This is also another one that comes up is they're asking is what about veterinary experience and how do you get it?
Yeah.
And also um people want to know if why is the veterinary experience so important and how the best ways to get it.
Yeah. Like I said before, I think the reason that our faculty feel that it's important is that you need to understand what a veterinarian does on their day that makes them tick and how do they move throughout their day as a professional. And it doesn't, I mean, most people think, well, small animal veterinarians doing dog and cat in the neighborhood, like that's probably the most common entry point to veterinary medicine across all of our applicants. Most people tend to be suburban. Even if they're rural or urban, they still probably have had animals. They took them to a vet, they have that relationship. But I would say that you don't really know what a veterinarian does until you actually walk alongside them on a daily basis as they do their work. Where can you find veterinary experience? Of course, in your local community, local veterinarians nearby are the first place to go. But don't forget that every time there's a dog show, cat show, horse show, there's going to be a veterinarian that's in charge. There's a state or local county fair. There's probably going to be a veterinarian there. If there's animals there, they're going to have policies in place so that these animals are healthy and remain healthy on display. And with all the intermixing of animals coming from, say, all over the state to go to the state fair, they need to have certain level of proof that they're healthy. So there's going to be a veterinarian involved. So if you're part of FFA or 4-H, there's going to be some veterinarians that you're going to interact with when you're doing the work for agribusiness, agriculture, animal husbandry. Don't forget there's veterinarians in public health, there's veterinarians in the government, there's veterinarians in education, like at the academic centers. There's veterinarians that are meat inspectors that are protecting the animals from growth to our table for protein. There's veterinarians in aquaculture, so they're out there at the fisheries. There's veterinarians in the state wildlife all of the state and federal wildlife agencies, USDA, FDA, there's veterinarians all over the place. So anytime you can meet and hang out with a veterinarian, you find any sector of veterinary medicine you want, and you should think about exploring that side of veterinary medicine. And don't forget there's veterinarians that are in pharmaceuticals and the nutrition animal pet food industry. They're doing all sorts of different amazing things. And there's a lot of veterinarians out there. There's about 100,000 veterinarians in this country actively working right now. So hopefully you're going to be able to find a place. How do you know a person? You just, if you don't know them, you got to send them an email, send them a letter, call them and say, hey, I hope to go to veterinary school. I'm interested in your sector of veterinary medicine. I'd love to come and shadow you, work alongside you. If there's a job available, I'd love to do that because I'd also love to do the veterinary experience and make money at the same time. Would be ideal because then you can tick off 2 boxes at once, veterinary experience and still earn a little income instead of just volunteering all the time. And that's going to be variable based on your individual location, your exposure, your pavement pounding, if you will. You're going to have to probably kiss a few frogs before you find your prince, as they say. During the pandemic, it was certainly very, very difficult because veterinarians were not welcoming any new members to their healthcare team because there was a huge risk. They needed to stay healthy and stay somewhat isolated in their own hospitals to take care of the people's animals in their community. So they weren't really welcoming people in. I think that's changed quite a bit now. I think we have more folks being more available to mentor young, interested folks. But there's a lot of the onus is on you to do the uncomfortable and somewhat awkward thing sometimes of calling, sending an email, sending a letter. It's just what's needed. And sometimes starting earlier is better because you can just say, I'm interested for next summer. because right now I'm in school and I really don't have any time. I might have time over the winter holiday break, but I'm really just starting the process now because I actually am more free in my time then. And you can prepare for then. They can prepare and see what their schedule may look like. And then they might welcome you in later as opposed to right now. So starting early is certainly very helpful. And exploring many avenues is, I think, really important. Cast a wide net. Any part of being a veterinary experience in any sector of veterinary medicine is good. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be in small animal medicine on the hospital that you take your own animals to. That's actually probably not the best place. You probably should go to somewhere unique and different that you haven't seen before. So start exploring. That's what veterinary experience is all about.
Dr. Gentry, can you make a pitch for your summer program? I put the link in there already.
Yeah, for our summer enrichment program is what we have here at UC Davis. We enroll somewhere between 12 and 16 scholars from across the country that are underrepresented and have overcome adversity in their education. We are looking to help give them a bit of a boost for their application. And in our program, it's a 4-week program right now where you spend 8 to 12 every day, Monday through Friday, working alongside our veterinarians, our residents, interns, and our students in the veterinary teaching hospital, which is just to the west of me. And in that 4 hours each day for the week, you get 20 hours times 4 weeks, you get 80 hours of veterinary experience in this program. Then there's a lunch break, and then the afternoon has a program that's diverse and it's wide, and it also is 4 weeks, where we teach you, help you, and guide you through everything that relates to the academic process of being a vet, how to pick and choose your classes, how to apply to veterinary school, how to write your candidate statement, how to ask for letters of recommendation. We also have lectures and guest appearances by some of our employees, whether they're staff or faculty, teaching us how to do different things like how to do blood testing on blood typing and blood testing for animals getting transfusions. We have faculty lecture to you about infectious diseases and or agribusiness and how it relates to the veterinary industry. Wildlife veterinarians that talk about the mountain gorillas in Rwanda and how that can be a career path for you. So our summer enrichment program is a highly competitive program. It's been going on for well over 30 years. We were trying to figure out when it actually started, and we can't find the historical documents, but I do know that one of my faculty members here who graduated in 1997, she did the summer enrichment program when she was an undergraduate. So that was the early 90s. So program has definitely been ingrained in the UC Davis DNA for well over 30 years, and we welcome your applications to that. Zubin put the link, I believe, in the chat that goes straight to what we call the summer enrichment program. It's not the only one in veterinary medicine. There's my friends at Purdue University have what they call Boilermaker Camp, because the Purdue Boilermaker is their mascot, just like we have the Aggies and Ohio State has the Buckeyes. The Purdue Boilermaker Camp is something similar, but a lot of veterinary schools have summer enrichment type programs, summer deep dive. They might call them different words, but the goals are to expose pre-veterinary scholars that are interested in undergrad to do things that help them get into veterinary school. And it's nice to know that about 25% of our SEP, summer enrichment program, participants get into UC Davis. Another percentage of them get into other veterinary schools, to tell you the truth, because not everyone gets into UC Davis because of the sheer numbers game. But we do know that all of these enrichment programs, summer activity programs are really powerful to help people get the next leg up to do the program. And they are just do some deep dives across the veterinary schools to find them, their summer programs. And I would start looking now to put those applications in, because all their dates are probably somewhat different as to when they want their data. You'll probably have to put in your letters of recommendation. You might have to have some supportive letters from your mentors and your advisors. You might have to submit your transcripts. So check those out and get started on them early.
Thank you so much for the detailed response and pitching the summer program. I love hearing about it. So our next question that we have is there a type of veterinary slash animal experience that is particularly valuable but often overlooked by students?
Good question, because any veterinary or animal experience, I think, is powerful for any veterinary aspiring person, because you're going to learn something that you didn't learn before. You're going to own that information like nobody else. And I would say, even if you're the most interested in being an equine veterinarian, I think it's very important to explore other aspects of veterinary medicine, because all the things that we do as veterinarians, and I think this what makes us very special as a professional, we do so much comparative medicine. It's really powerful. You know, when you look at a zoo and you see a giraffe, you think to yourself, how am I going to learn every giraffe disease known to man? Like, well, let's just dial it back to what we do know about a giraffe. A giraffe's a ruminant, just like a cow. So if you really want to do giraffes for your entire life, because that's your dream, well, you should probably focus on ruminants. So sheep, goats, and cows. Like, learn as much as you can about those herbivores, because the inside of a giraffe is just like an inside of these other animals. The giraffe has some other physiologic adaptations based to its environment, on its evolution and all those things, but it's still a mammal. It's still an herbivore, and comparative medicine is the nature of what we do. So any aspect of veterinary medicine that you dive into is going to have application, and you're going to learn something that's going to help you in another area of veterinary medicine. It's just the nature of the beast. We have to have a curiosity, and we have to have that openness to say, I can problem solve this problem. I've experienced it in a chinchilla, but now that I'm dealing with a platypus, what do I know in a chinchilla that can help me with a platypus? Completely different creatures, but is there something that's similar that I can think about? And this is what veterinarians do. I think it makes our job very fascinating. And in fact, if there's anybody on here that's sort of trying to decide, do you like medicine? Do you like nursing? Do you like veterinary medicine? Like, you're not really sure which one you want to pursue. I'll put in a vote for pursuing veterinary medicine because of this very complicated and comparative approach that is fascinating. Like, it is just nonstop enjoyment, because you're like, I can solve this puzzle. I've never seen it before, but I'm so smart. I'm so into it. I'm so used to complicated decision making. I can figure it out. I have friends who can help me. And we have this community that says, we've never been here before, but let's figure this out together. So I think veterinary medicine allows people to pivot. It allows them to be creative, and it allows you to remain extremely curious. So I love being a veterinarian. I think it's the best job that I could have ever thought about doing. That's all I ever wanted to do. P.S. I never really wanted to be anything but a veterinarian from small childhood. But I'm really glad I'm here, because I do get to do amazing things, creative things, curious things, explore new problems, but I've never been there before, but I've already had training, and I've already had ideas, and I've already had experiences with other species and other environments that I'm like, oh, I think I can figure this out. It's pretty damn cool. So the other thing I like about veterinary medicine that I don't think you have in the human healthcare realm is that veterinarians who are in their sector of veterinary medicine, for instance, let's take me. I'm a small animal person. I'm a board certified emergency critical care specialist, but I'm at the academic setting. Okay, I could have worked in private practice. I did for a little while. Here I am in private. I'm in public practice now. Okay, that's cool. That's kind of a pivot. I went from private to public. Okay, while I'm here, I took on leadership roles. I was director of continuing education for the school for a while. That was kind of that was a bit of a pivot. That was super easy. And then I was like, oh, the associate dean job is open. I really like students. I like supporting cool student extracurricular activities. Let me apply for that. Got that job. So I've like pivoted, and I still am a veterinarian. I still take care of patients in the emergency room or the ICU, but I have all these other layers of really fascinating things I get to do because of who I am, where I've been, what I've learned, and the things that I've pursued, but as well as remaining curious and open to also new opportunities. I've sort of pivoted in my career to keep it fresh and keep it very fascinating, even though I graduated in 1992 from veterinary school. it's utterly like a brand new job every day. It's utterly fascinating. And if you go through, if I was a human emergency and critical care type person, if I would want to pivot away from that, it'd be really hard. I would have to go back to a residency program. Say I wanted to become a dermatologist. I'd have to go and do after being in emergency critical care practice as a physician for 30 years, I'd have to go do a dermatology residency for 4 years. Then I'd have to take the boards again, and then I'd have to get a new set of licensure. Veterinarians can do that. But because we know a heck of a lot about dermatology already, if I didn't want to be a specialist, I can just say, I'm going to do only dermatology and zoo animals. And it's possible. So you can pivot super easy into a new sector of veterinary medicine without all the backtracking and all the hard work that you have to do in human medicine. So honestly, I find many people in their mid to later career in veterinary medicine super excited, super supercharged, willing to take new responsibilities and pivot, and they're super happy about it. Whereas my friends and my physician friends, they're not as happy about where they are right now. They feel stuck. They're not as energized. They're not as they feel stuck, and they're not so happy about all the other layers of medicine. Instead of just taking care of people, that's what they want to do, but then they have to worry about insurance and coding and charting and all these other things. And they're like, I spend half my time on all that stuff I don't like, and I only get to do the stuff I like for half the time. So they're not as I would say professionally rewarded and fulfilled as most of the veterinarians that I meet. So PS, I think veterinary medicine is better than human medicine. Personal perspective, but for all the reasons I just said, pivoting, changing up your career, keeping it fresh, remaining enthusiastic and energized by your profession. I'm all for vet med. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you for answering. So the next question that we have is, other than the obvious flaws, like not doing your schoolwork or not putting effort in our veterinary background, such as not volunteering in vet clinics, what are other specific things we should avoid doing if we want to be selected in a competitive vet school?
Okay, well, that's a harder one. Things to avoid. I think that there are so many things that you do on your path to apply to veterinary school. You probably just don't realize that they're important, and they're things that you should continue to do, or you don't give them the stature or power that they actually deserve. Like if you're a leader of some club on campus, and you are an active leader and you take that club to new places and do all sorts of great stuff with local in the institution and in the community, you probably don't realize how powerful that is to be a skill set that a professional is going to need. And I would say avoidance of joining clubs and avoidance of leadership is probably a problem, because veterinarians and any healthcare provider is a leader in their community. We don't just train veterinarians to be intelligent and pass tests. We train veterinarians to be leaders in their community, in research, in clinics, and in like driving diversity, equity, inclusion agendas. Like this is what veterinarians do. So if you avoid leadership, well, is that because you actually don't want to be a leader? And that's fine. Or you're afraid to be a leader because you don't feel like you have had enough training. Well, if you avoid seeking out how to become a leader, that's a problem. If you avoid seeking out how to be a better public speaker, that's a problem. If you avoid being curious and talking to diverse groups of people, that's a problem. I think that veterinary medicine and veterinarians in general are just curious into their communities type of people. They really like people. And if you avoid humans because you want to go to vet school, that's a fatal flaw, because this is a people business. Veterinary medicine 100% is a people business, and every person is attached to an animal or a flock or a herd whether they're captive, whether they're free ranging, whether they're in a house, on a farm, there's always a person attached. Even in shelter medicine, there's always people that are setting the policies and running the shelter that are going to matter. So 100% veterinary medicine is a people business. And if you avoid people, that's a problem. So there, I gave you a couple things to avoid. That's what quickly comes to mind. But I think that capitalizing on all the things that you do and saying, I bet you that's something a veterinarian does. Speaking another language, that's what veterinarians do. Talking to their community groups when the community groups say, hey, can you come and speak to us about this and how it relates to us? Yes, that's what veterinarians do. Veterinarians pick up trash off the ground because they don't want to see their environment littered and they don't want the animals in the environment eating or ingesting all of that trash. So they pick it up and throw it away. This is what veterinarians do. So if you avoid those things, don't. If you dive into them and help them enrich your life as a human, as a community member, that if it feels right, then you're probably going to be a great veterinarian.
Perfect. Our next question is, what if you have already volunteer hours and also worked as a vet assistant in a vet hospital? They're asking if that can go towards the hours that are required.
Sure. The question becomes volunteer hours and hours as a vet assistant. Were you working alongside a veterinarian? And if you were, and that veterinarian was directing your daily events, you were helping that veterinarian with their patient care, then that would be veterinary experience. And you do that. It's animal experience if there's no veterinarian involved. So if you were volunteering at a shelter with staff members taking care of the critters, but you didn't see the veterinarian because they were a community veterinarian, they just spent a few hours a week at the shelter, which is sometimes the formula that some shelters use. That's animal experience. But if there's a veterinarian there helping with things, you were helping the veterinarian. Those are veterinary hours. That's what you do, whether they're paid or unpaid. Those are veterinary hours when you're working alongside and mentored by a vet.
Perfect. Our next one is, if we are working on prerequisite courses and are about to transfer, can we start a sequence at our community college and finish it once we transfer, or should we complete our sequence classes at one college?
Great question. It's not required that you complete the sequence at each place. But when you transfer, say you're mid-sequence on, let's just say, chemistry or organic chemistry, you take like a lecture at a community college and then you transfer and you take the second lecture in a laboratory at UC Davis, for instance. What you're going to need, this happens, and this works. It's a little more creative because you have to check basically those articulation agreements that Jubin mentioned before that we have posted online that says these courses at X are equivalent to these courses at Y. So we basically take all the courses at community colleges or other institutions and index them to what the UC Davis undergrad courses are, because that's what we know most. And it's possible to take the equivalent beginning 1 and 2 at a local college or another, say UC San Diego, and you're going to transfer to UC Davis. So we know what they're called there. So you might take A and B, and then you might take C and D at the second school. That's okay. You just have to make sure that they are equivalent in their pattern. And if you have any questions, we have that stuff posted online. And when there's still questions, then you can write to svmadmissions@ucdavis.edu. And that email comes to me and Brandy McCall and Anila Ahmed. And we get this email box and we respond to these questions as fast as we can. So if it's hard to understand the equivalency, then have us help you. And don't forget, every vet school has different prerequisites because every vet school has a different curriculum, and the curriculum is set by each veterinary school faculty, and they're all different. So what's needed at UC Davis is not necessarily exactly the same as what's needed at Colorado State or Oregon State or Ohio State. So when you're talking about this transfer and the equivalency, I talk about it at one location, but you need to check with all the other locations too to make sure that it jives.
The only thing is, I just want to tell you guys, be careful because some schools like Berkeley, Cal Poly, some of them, their departments are pretty strict. So they would say if you take organic one, you know, at your JC, but you want to take organic two, they want you to repeat organic one because they're not on the same sequence. It also happens with the quarter classes. So if you take like one, then they're gonna ask you to take like, two and three, or so just be careful. Um, and that's why like it's really important to look at both assist.org and also the transfer admission person at your community college. I know that if you attend a community college, you have a transfer center at every single one of them, and also UC Davis, UCLA, um, all of those other programs have reps that come to those campuses, and you could meet with them as well. And this is all free. You don't have to pay for it. You just have to schedule it. And they could sit there and talk to you about like what each department requires. The sequencing thing, just just be careful because some departments, you know, uh, are a little finicky about that. The vet school may not may not be important to them, but what do they say? Like in academia, everyone has their own fiefdom. So just really work with those folks because they will tell you like uh, the department may not accept certain transfer breaks or whatever. So all right. Do you want to ask the next question, Steve?
Yeah, so the next question we have says, would it be helpful to go in person and ask for veterinary experience that way, or is it better to call or write an email?
That's a hard one because every veterinarian you're going to ask is going to want a little different thing. Because if you just show up and they're busy with appointments or they're in surgery, they might say, "Oh gosh, I don't have time to talk to you." Um, some veterinarians would love if you walked in and want to actually see you, meet you, and talk to you right then, but I can't guarantee that they'll have time. I can tell you that from talking to a lot of pre-veterinary students that they all work writing a letter longhand and mailing it, showing up, seeing people, that helps. Writing an email to set a date to meet also works. Sometimes you just go meet the front office staff and have a conversation with the front office staff and say, "Hey, I'm interested. I want to be I'm a pre-vet. I'm interested. I'd love to know if there's any job openings or any shadowing opportunities." And the front office staff might know the vibe of the hospital. They might say, "Hey, we know that we don't take volunteers like that, but we do know that there's a job open that you might want to apply for. Here's this." So no one size fits all. And depending upon the environment, I know some hospitals, maybe they're bigger corporate hospitals, they actually might have a no volunteer policy. For instance, our hospital, huge institution, you have to be 18 years old or older, period, just to do any kind of observation. Unless you're on a tour, anybody can take a tour of the school, but to actually do the observation type of stuff, the volunteerism, you have to be at least 18. So sometimes people have that kind of policy in their hospitals as well, a certain age limit. To repeat, one size doesn't fit all. Sometimes it takes a little of all the above. Sometimes I'd write a letter introducing yourself, maybe putting a little resume along with it and saying, I hope to connect with you via email to set a time to talk. Or I'm going to be in the neighborhood and I have time next week to stop by. I'm going to just stop by and I hope to talk to somebody. I mean, you can do it, you can mix them all together, but one size does not fit all. And if you get crickets and no one responds to you, that doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's no. It means they haven't responded. So you can follow up with a call or an email. The only time you know that you're not wanted is if they write back and say, "Sorry, we're not accepting volunteers at this time." That's the only no. Otherwise, if you don't hear, you should just be persistent and call again. And you're also probably going to cast a wider net. You're going to not just focus on just one hospital and one thing at one time. You're probably going to send letters to a lot of different places that are accessible to you regionally. And then you're going to go for the one that you think, if you get a wealth of opportunities, then you might have to choose which one's going to be the best for you. And that would be a great place to be. But you don't know until you start asking. Correct.
Yeah, and the other thing is like everybody's different. Some people are great with email, some people don't do email. But I would just tell you this, this is the biggest thing I always tell people for medicine or whatever, is if you walk into a vet clinic, email or call them, you're going to talk to their staff and be extra nice to the staff because they are the gatekeepers. If you are a jerk to that staff person, or not, I would say be nicer to the staff person than you are to the veterinarian.
Well, actually, note to self, good advice. If you're having an off day and you're not feeling it, just step up to the plate and own it and actually be nice. However, my hope is that as a future veterinarian, your default is also to be very nice, very kind, very curious, very welcoming. And I shouldn't have to tell you to be nice as a future professional. I understand you could be having a bad day or you're whatever. You were on your way on the bicycle and you hit something, you pulled a flat, you had to walk the rest of the time. You were pissed off when you arrived and sweaty. It's not their fault. They don't necessarily need to know that you had a hard day, but you can still be a kind, interested, and welcoming person. So I never have to tell my scholars that are here in vet school to do the right thing and be the nicest person they can. Because that's grounding for veterinarians. It's grounding for professionals. You have to actually approach every sort of scenario with kindness and curiosity.
Thank you. The next question we have, can you explain more for a bio with zoology degree? Do we still get to do some vet stuff as a zoologist?
So I'll give you some wisdom of what I was told when I was applying to vet school, because at the time it's so hard to get into vet school and that hasn't changed in 40 years. I was told to ensure that what you are studying, you love, you enjoy, you really do, and you will do if you don't get into vet school. So you need to explore that instead of just the name of the degree. Tell yourself or ask yourself, would I actually be excited about doing that if I wasn't in vet school? Or if I didn't get into vet school in my first attempt and it took 2 or 3 years to get into vet school, would I be happy being a biologist or a zoologist or a poultry scientist or something? I thought that was pretty good advice because it's true. You don't always get into veterinary school. You don't always get into veterinary school right away. It might take some time. You might not get into veterinary school that your first choice. You might get into your third choice. I don't know. Things happen. But explore what the degree means and what you get to do with the degree. So biology and zoology are relatively broad degrees, and you can probably apply those skills to many different sectors of any profession or any other career, whether, I mean, biology certainly assumes animals, but some biology programs focus on animals and plants. Some zoology tends to be more focused on physiology, anatomy, structure, and function, and zoology may be a little more limiting because that doesn't have any plants at all. It's really just animals and the interrelationships of animals. So my scholars who do biology, animal science, global disease biology, animal biology as undergraduate majors, if they don't get into veterinary school, a lot of them take that degree and they find a job that is interesting to them in their gap year that gives them skills and relationships and work with animals nonetheless. So a lot of them with biology, zoology, animal science, and all the ones I rattled off, they might find a job in a veterinary hospital. They might find a job with California Fish and Game. They might find a job with U.S. wildlife, it just depends. And I think that all of those degrees are going to set you up for animal type, animal human interaction type, or animal human environment type jobs. Um, how much and what you get to do directly related to animal care, animal husbandry, animal policy is going to vary. So it's up to you to pick and choose the jobs you are most interested in when you have a broad basing degree like zoology or biology. And I can't predict how much veterinary, directly type veterinary stuff you get to do. And if you're a biologist or zoologist, you will not be doing any animal surgeries or things like that. Those are for veterinarians. But you might be doing animal rehabilitation, wildlife animal rehabilitation. Those kind of things certainly are possible, but it will be under the direction of a veterinarian. So if you're not getting into vet school and you're looking for a job with those degrees, make sure you like that type of job that you would be doing.
Thank you. The next one we have says, would you recommend me to go into pre-vet bachelor degrees first, then transfer to UC Davis Vet School and get a bachelor's in wildlife and conservation management, and then go to UC Davis Vet School? My dream job is to become a wildlife veterinarian for all animals, not just pets.
Again, you pursue your path that you want and do the coursework that you love and do it where it fits your budget and the feasibility, and do the best you can. There are some schools, whether they have a vet school or not, that have a pre-veterinary degree. Some schools don't have a pre-veterinary degree, like Davis does not have one. Ohio State, where I went to school, does not have one. So we focus on a degree that's a different major. And you got to pick that one that's going to help you be a true academic individual and have a good application to veterinary school. The reason a lot of people take animal science or biology or animal biology, those kind of things, because their alignment with our prerequisites and what's required for that degree are pretty much similar. So you check off two things with one attempt. So you get all the prereqs with vet school and you do all the major requirements at the same time. Because if you were a women and gender study major and you wanted to take what's required for your major and the prerequisites for UC Davis, that's a little bit harder because you're in a humanities track and now you have to take all these other STEM classes. It's going to be a little bit harder to schedule and it's going to be a little bit bigger lift. But I can tell you those people that do that, who are masters at the humanities and do great at the STEM prerequisite classes, they're absolutely amazing applicants, and they become amazing veterinarians because they understand social science and the physical sciences. And they're absolutely going to be the best people in this world. I love them. And they certainly identify themselves as very unique when it comes to applying to veterinary school. When most of our applicants are STEM majors and we have 5 to 10% of them as humanities majors, I can tell you that I'm more excited and enthusiastic about the humanities majors because they can do both. They can do a psychology degree and a STEM degree with prerequisites to get to vet school. They're amazing. They are utterly amazing. And they become some of the best people and the best leaders that I've seen come through veterinary medicine. So like I said, I don't care what your degree is or where you study it, but I have a bias towards people who maximize their educational experience with lots of humanities courses and do well at the STEM prerequisites and keep good grades up on all the above and apply to vet school. They're forces to contend with. That's what I would call them. Got off a little track on the question, but it's up to you to take your degree that you want from the place you want. The real reason we don't care is that we don't accept people from UC Davis undergrad at any higher or lower rate than any other school in the country. We don't have a preference for or a bias against UC Davis undergrads, just like Ohio State doesn't have a bias for or against Ohio State undergrads. No one really cares. because it's about the coursework and maximizing your ability to be a good academic. And we have a lot of applicants coming from UC Davis. That's for sure, because we're the vet school for the public institution in the state. The animal sciences are right down the road, less than 300 yards.
Ag school.
Yeah. Sorry?
The ag school.
Yeah, the ag school.
Yeah, it's
So
one of the largest ag schools too. So
it's a great ag school. It's often in the top 1, 2, or 3 of ag sciences programs. It's a powerhouse. So, I mean, I understand why a lot of people come here, for sure.
Thank you. So another question that seems new is what letters of recommendation? Their question is it better to get a letter of recommendation from a veterinarian or a professor or one of each?
Great. I did want to come to this. I'm glad you asked. So your letters of recommendation for veterinary school, you need at least 3 of them, and one of them has to be from a veterinarian. The other 2 can be from anyone else. So here's my goal for you as applicants to veterinary school. You're writing a story about you that you're introducing yourself to a group of people who'd never met you. So you're basically writing a story. It's a short book about you, and you're in charge of your letter of intent. So you're writing your essay about yourself, telling you, here's who I am, here's what I've gone through, here's what I bring to the table, here's really what I want to do with my veterinary school while I'm there, and here's what I want to take away from vet school with my education, and here's what I want to do in the future. This is what I envision myself doing with that education. So that's your chapter, your essay about you. And then you have 3 letter writers, and the 3 letter writers are also going to write about you. But I would suggest that you control your letter writers and give them a theme upon which you want them to write. So the veterinarian is going to write about you being a veterinary colleague, because you've probably spent time with that veterinarian, walking and working alongside them. They're part of your veterinary hours. They're the ones you have the best relationship and longest relationship with. It's really important that that letter comes from that veterinarian. But they checked off the veterinary story about you. The other 2 letter writers should do something different. I would suggest that your second letter might come from an academic professor, TA, someone who knows you well. Maybe it was someone that you took their class, and then later you actually maybe TA'd for that professor in that class. So they've seen you in that academic setting. They've watched you develop your academic curiosity. They've mentored you as being an early educator, as a TA. Then they're going to write to us as the admissions committee. They're going to write to us on the theme of academic success and academic curiosity. And that's different from what the veterinarian's writing about. The veterinarian's writing about you and working with the team and communicating with clients and delivering good news and delivering bad news and talking about money and cleaning up poop. Like, that's what the veterinarian's going to talk about. That faculty member is going to talk about you as an academic learner and potentially as a teacher. Really important. That's a good second theme to pick. Then the third theme maybe is going to be maybe an advisor or a religious leader. Maybe you were a club president or you were chair of your youth group, and they're going to write on the theme of community and dealing with people and maybe advancing underrepresented or underappreciated unhoused folks or something. Maybe they're going to say, this person is selfless, they're interested in their community, they're a kind individual. And that theme is not brought forward in the academic letter, and it's not brought forward necessarily in the veterinary letter. So when you see these letter writers, when they write on a theme, they're going to talk about you in that area. And then each of those essays, those letters, those stories are different chapters in the book of you. It's much more helpful and gives the admissions committee a really broad view of you, because if you just say, hey, I'd like you to write a letter for me and I want to go to vet school, they'll probably say, yeah, you're a great person, we'll help you with that. But you have no idea what's going to happen. And it would be better for us if they each told a different facet of the complicated and amazing person that you are. So I suggest always, when you're writing, asking for letters to be written about you, always, always, always pick your letter writers that know you the most for the longest period of time in the deepest way on the themes you want to be written about. And I think veterinary medicine is essential because we require one from a vet. Something about your academic skill is also really powerful and important. And something about a member of community that makes you a good person is also really helpful. Maybe you have had a debate coach and you want to talk about communication and you want to highlight that. Okay, great, do that. That would be another good theme to write on. But if you have something amazing and interesting that you want to bring forward, pick that theme and have someone write it, the letter for you based on that theme. So you have control over that. You don't have control over what they say, but you have control over the topic. So that's the best way to get your letters from people for your application.
Thank you. So the next question says, I've started gaining some animal and veterinary experience, but I'm not sure what the best next step is. What would you recommend I should focus on to first build a strong foundation?
Yeah, this is another good question that comes up quite often. When you talk about animal and veterinary experience, we're always looking for what's the right experience? How much is the right experience? Do you want me to get experience in all these species, or do you want me to stick in one species lane and do it really deep? So the question becomes, what's the breadth of my experience and what's the depth of my experience need to be a good applicant? And we understand that not everybody has the availability to get to all these different animal or veterinary experiences. You don't necessarily work near a raptor rehabilitation center. You don't necessarily live or work near a large animal practitioner. You don't necessarily live or work near a veterinary academic institution. You don't necessarily work or live near a small animal clinic in the urban setting. I mean, we know that everyone comes from different places. So we also know that you get the experience that you can get, and you should get it as you can get it, but don't not work, don't not interact with your support system, don't not just break the bank trying to get this best experience somewhere else. I would say do what you can where you can get it that's easy and hopefully maybe gets paid. Volunteering is great, but if you can also get paid, I think that's pretty important. Not everybody has a paid experience, however. Let's just say that if all you're able to get is working at a very small animal clinic and all your experience hours are at that same small animal general practice down the street, easy for you to walk to, they pay you. You've got 360 hours. Great. Just do that. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Some schools say, well, we really like to see you have some large animals, some small animals, some zoologics, some rural medicine. But we realize at Davis, just like we don't care where you study or what you study, we also know that it's hard to get all these experiences, both the depth and the breadth of all the different experiences. So if you're like, the question is like, how do I build the best foundation? Like the best foundation is do what you can, get in, do it well, and develop deep bonds to the people there and the veterinarians there, and maybe the animals and the clients. That's how you build a good foundation, by being completely and 100% present. When you're completely and 100% present, you will be curious, you will have your eyes wide open, and you'll see a lot of stuff that you won't see. So if you were just being superficial. So I would say, get what you can, do what you can, where you can get it done. And we don't require you to have multiple experiences in multiple different species. We don't require you to have anything more than 180 hours of veterinary experience. And if you only have like 150 hours at application, still put in your application because it's close enough. This is not a hard 180 hours. It's 180 hours. But when you apply, and you have 150, we know that you're still going to continue to do work and gain experience. And by the time you're interviewed, or by the time you're offered, or by the time you sit in the seat in veterinary medicine, you will have had 180 hours. If you only have 20, that's a different story, but 150 is close enough. So put your application in, expect it to move forward without a problem. Just, we realize that not everyone can do all the things all the time.
Thank you. Just right on the last question. So if our distance traveled scores for admissions could be potentially lowered, how can we be more competitive in other ways in application? I know it's kind of mentioned before a little.
Yeah. So if your distance travel score is what it is, because it's water under the bridge, it's stuff that's already happened in your life that you had no control over. The other two parts are your grade point averages. So do the best you can in every individual course you ever take, and your letters of recommendation, 3 of them. And we just talked about how to maximize your letters. Have your letter writers write on a theme, and hopefully they know you the best for the longest period of time, and they know you deeply in that theme that you want them to write about. So that's going to be a rich, high scoring letter. So that's what you're left with. If you feel that your distance traveled score is what it is, like, you have no control over it. So the other 2 places are to maximize your GPA and make sure your letter writers go to bat for you. And then another person, so do undergraduate majors not necessarily matter when applying to vet school? Yeah, we went over that. No undergraduate major is important for us. If you want to be a music performance major, do it. If you want to be a women's and gender studies scholar, do it. If you want to major in business and finance, do it.
But take those premeds. This is a question that comes up all the time. Is a lot of students are told to go become a registered vet tech first and then do their prereqs for vet school. Can you talk about that and why, it's expensive, but also takes longer?
Yeah, I mean, having a RVT, being a registered veterinary technician, that's what we call them in California. Every state, they're called something different: LVTs, CVTs, RVTs. It's a licensed technician. A lot of people can become a veterinary assistant without those degrees and without that extra training. But RVT has a certain known level of skill. They have past academics. They have clarity about what they are and what they are not allowed to do, according to the Veterinary Practice Act. And then they're going to be more highly utilized and more highly paid at a veterinary practice for sure, in whatever setting they're doing, compared to an assistant or a volunteer for sure. It's not required. I mean, we don't look at our veterinary applicants and say, oh, this one's been an RVT, so they're going to be a better vet. No, we don't really add value or take away anything. I can tell you, all the people who are RVTs, they have hundreds, if not thousands, of veterinary hours, because that's the work that they've been doing. So they have 1,800, 2,000 hours easily when they're applying, or if not more, depending on how many years they've been in the business. Here's an interesting applicant came to us and was part of a community college and got his EMT certification. It's not a veterinary technician, but it's a medical paraprofessional. And he was able to work as an EMT and go to school, community college, and then transferred to UC Davis. This was a local colleague of mine. And he made really good money as an EMT. He spent, I think, less time getting EMT certification than would have been for an RVT. He still had his sort of job as an EMT, very closely related to health professions. So that was really interesting. It kept him close to health. And he would do some veterinary medicine things on the side of that, but that was his job. He had a job going to school. He had a job as an EMT. Never got his RVT certification, but he had another skill set that was actually extremely valuable and related to health and health delivery, care delivery. So instead of being an RVT, he was an EMT. And I was like, that's a pretty good combination, is coming to veterinary school with the EMT certification and experience. He already knows how to talk to people. He knows how about health. He knows about resuscitation. Like, it's actually pretty cool. So did his application get looked at any better or any worse because he had an EMT? Nope. Would an RVT person be looked at with any difference? No, not here at UC Davis. But if it's something that's important on your path to get to veterinary school, yeah, go ahead and do it. We have a lot of RVTs from the veterinary school who work as an RVT here for a while. And then maybe after 5 to 10 years here, then they're like, oh, yeah, I've done this. I really want to go to vet school now. So they apply to vet school. They usually get in, not necessarily here, but they get into veterinary schools somewhere. And then they're now flexing and pivoting their veterinary career from a tech to a vet. And they actually are having a great time. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah. Yeah, just the last questions. I've
Sure.
got to prepare my DMV application. Could you share how visible tattoos are viewed in terms of professionalism? Do admissions committees or clinical programs have policies or recommendations regarding tattoo visibility during interviews or rotations?
Sure. I mean, in the days when I was in school, tattoos were less common. I mean,
And piercings too.
yeah, for sure. Tattoos and piercings were certainly less common. It's always about, when you think about it, your your presentation to the world and your delivery of care, you often want them to be kind of matched. And if you're going to be working in a zoo behind the scenes, maybe piercings and tattoos don't matter so much because the zoo animals and the zoo caregivers maybe don't care. But if you're tatted and pierced in a way that is kind of maybe off-putting to some of the clientele, they're either going to have to deal with it or they're going to have to accept it. And I don't know what to say about how those people are going to view you. When you're applying to us, well, we don't care. The only time we see you is when we interview you. And when we interview you, we are trained in, all of us and all of our admissions interview raters are trained on implicit bias to know what our biases are, but not allow them to be placed on our assessment of you as an interviewee. So I mean, we have plenty of people who are tatted and pierced in our school that go through school and graduate, and they're just fine. The world is a little more, at least California is a little more welcoming to all that. But I would have to say, think about the healthcare delivery. If your tats and piercing are at risk for good healthcare delivery, maybe there's something that might allow it to not be the best for health and safety or sterility. Maybe there's times where you're, depending on what you're doing, like when we're doing surgery, there's nothing on our hands. All rings and all that jewelry is all taken off. And tattoos really aren't going to be a problem because they're, you know, they can be sterilized when you're scrubbing for surgery. But if you had any sort of special piercings or something about your hand, that's going to be a very unusual thing. You can't do surgeries with that going on. So think about the care delivery and if that's going to be impeded by any of the body jewelry or otherwise. But on the application process, specifically to the question, no, we don't really see you until the interview. And at the interview, we are trained to just listen to what you have to say, not what you look like.
And also, at the end of the day, it's all about your client. If they don't have confidence in you, then that becomes a challenge. But also, I mean, if your client's over 80, maybe, but if your client's 30, I think you should be fine. But it's all relative.
Yeah, and if your practice area is inner city San Francisco and Haight-Ashbury, and you don't have tats and piercings, maybe they would be like, "What's going on?"
They wouldn't come to you, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it's important to have a caregiver aligned culturally and linguistically with the people they're caring for. People that have parity between the caregiver and the cared for tend to have trust built faster. Compliance usually goes up, and especially if there's a bilingual or a trilingual need here, if you can deliver their care in their native tongue, everything will be much better for them and for that animal if you had that skill set too. So I think I mentioned before about having multilinguality. It's very important because you never know what your clients are going to want. And sometimes if you can speak Spanish or Mandarin to them and that's their native tongue, they'll appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's why diversity is important because, again, it comes down to if you look like your patients, then and your clients,
Yeah,
that's important. Well, we don't have any other questions, and I think it's 11:38, so we've kept you 8 minutes longer. So
that's fine. It's a great conversation, and I always enjoy talking to you and hearing what the audience is interested in because we want to make sure that you're well informed so that it's the easiest thing for you to make an application and get into vet school and pursue your dreams.
All righty. Well, thank you again, Dr. Gentry, for making yourself available on Saturday, and thank you again.
My pleasure. We'll see you again sometime.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.